I mean, first of all, I would contest the major premise in some ways that modern science has simply eliminated the three out of the four causes of Aristotle. Certainly the material cause, science takes very seriously. So material and efficient causality are still dominant categories. Formal causality, and that's not really a scientific category, but it's a very lively, it seems to me, philosophical category. That things have a formal structure and intelligibility, I think is hard to deny. Final causality is maybe the most controversial, but as I read postmodern science, there's a recovery of final causality. And the thing about final causality is every time you exercise your mind, as I'm doing now, as that questioner did, you're dealing with final causality. I mean, minds are all about ends and purposes, aren't they? Here's what I want to do. What are you aiming for? What do you want? So final causality certainly exists. I mean, unless you're an absolute devotee of scientism and you deny that the mind is anything but an epiphenomenon of matter, the minute you hold to mind, you're holding to some kind of final causality. Now, if you hold to God, that there's a great mind that has given rise to the whole world, then you begin to see final causality everywhere, because you see something like purpose within the very structure of being. As I say, postmodern science, a lot of the quantum kind of stuff, is moving in that direction. So I think you can still use Aristotle as a philosophical matrix for looking at even some of these scientific questions. Now, the church in relation to all that, the church uses what it can in its work of apologetics, its work of explaining itself to a given culture. Thomas did it with Aristotle, as the questioner suggests, Augustine with Plato and others, Newman with Locke and Hume and many others. Fine, that's the church's prerogative. It can use philosophy if it is helpful. But it does so, I agree with Karl Barth here, in an ad hoc way. Here, if it works, doesn't work, there, don't use it. Aristotle's helpful here, terrific. Not helpful there, drop him. What matters is the logos of Christ, in whom all things subsist, right? Well then, sure, from that standpoint, I can use all the logoi I want, all the different philosophical systems. So I'm not beholden to any of them. The church is never beholden to either Plato or Aristotle or Wittgenstein or anybody. At the same time, it can use all of them. So that's the project. And I would say to this questioner, don't get locked into any kind of philosophical orthodoxy, whether it's classical, medieval, or modern, or postmodern. Look at all the philosophies, and they've all got something worthwhile. Test them all against the measure, which is Christ, and then use them as you see fit.